A rugby player who sued an opponent over a revenge tackle has won a compensation case at the High Court.
Dani Sanuka was left with a permanent spinal injury, resulting in her needing to use a wheelchair for the rest of her life. And her lawyers have said she should expect a payout of around £10 million.
Joining us now is lawyer and broadcaster Andrew Eborn. Andrew, this is a really interesting case because obviously lots of people will think, well, you know, on the sporting field, you know, accidents happen, people put tackles in and you might get injured, and it was, you know, one of the risks that you take when you play sport. But this is basically saying that, you know, in effect, if you do something reckless, or you go in and you want to hurt your opponent, you could be facing a multi-million-pound payout.
Absolutely, and it is interesting that we're doing it today on Sunday when many people are on the playing fields, playing rugby, playing football. Oh, is it Saturday?
Pushing his time away.
It's the 4-day week, that's what happened.
That's what it is.
Worked on that basis. No,
but at least you're here.
At least
you're not having the day off. By the way, we did want to interview Mariam's boss, but because he was only doing a 4-day week, he couldn't come on and do it, so she got replaced, or he got replaced by her to do it. You couldn't make it up.
You could make it up, but you're right. Saturday, of course, it is. Valente non fittinuria is normally a defence. So what that means, if you're willingly participating in something which is dangerous, you can't get compensation for the injuries that result. There are major exceptions to that. One is that you don't consent to inadequate safety measures, and the other is that if there's basically exacting revenge, as happened here, where it's a reckless disregard for your safety, then in those circumstances you will recover damages. This is a horrendous case, a sporting injury which happened on a rugby field. In the particular circumstances of the case were there was a bit of a ruckus, a bit of argy-bargy beforehand, and this tackle was done not in the normal sportsman's way, but actually to exact revenge. It was so basically the injury was foreseeable. The judge felt that there was a reckless disregard to the claimant's safety. And when you're looking at these cases, there are three principles you have to do. One is, do they owe a duty of care? And anybody playing any sport owes a duty of care to their competitors, as does the referee and the sporting bodies and so on and so forth. Was that duty breached as a result of what happened? And lastly, was damage suffered as a result? And this is not the only sporting case. As I was discussing with Phil earlier, it happened in the jockey world, didn't it?
I think, you know, as you said, on this one, it wasn't part of the rough and tumble of the game. This was her saying, this is what I'm going to do.
She was slightly... She jumped
down on her.
She was intending to cause some harm.
But the other one is if you're reckless.
Yes, because the case that Andrew mentioned was in horse racing, is that a jockey, Graham Gibbons,
yes,
he manoeuvred his horse into a gap, and in doing so forced another horse to fall.
Yes.
He didn't intend anything to go wrong. He didn't intend that to happen. But the judge in that case decided that because he'd acted recklessly, he was still liable to pay compensation. So you don't even have to intend something bad to happen.
And it was at Kempton Park on 31st of October 2016 that happened. Horse Nellie Dean and Madame Butterfly, and exactly that sort of thing. And that's the test. It's the reckless disregard. We understand when you go onto a sporting field, there's the rough and tumble, there's risks involved. You work on that sort of basis. But when you're looking at the level of damages, just quickly on that, there are two aspects to it. One is the general damages, what they call pain, suffering, loss of amenity, and that's got a tariff. There's a tariff rates depending on the injury suffered. And the other is called special damages, when you're talking about these very, very high figures, and that's to do with the costs and financial loss, which is the cost of maybe if you have to adapt your home, you've got that sort of medical cost and so on and so forth, but also loss of earnings. And when you're looking at some of these major stars in the world of sport, they could be significant, which is why the level of damages are so high.